you are. Thank you so much. Okay, do you want one each?
Thank you
hello
again.
there. My name's Faye and this is Grace, and we're from the Royal School of Dunkeld.
It took us 2 hours to get here, and we came to speak to you today about our murals.
So basically, we are here to represent our boards to show you what we think we would like to happen in Burnham and Dunkeld.
And show our vision for the future.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Erin.
I'm Thomas.
I'm Gemma.
And we will be talking to you about the process of making our mural boards. So to begin with, we were given blank barometers, and at the top we had to draw a picture of ourselves and what we like to do in our spare time. And then in the middle we had to rate how good and safe we thought our community was. And then at the bottom we had to draw a picture of what can make our community safer and happier place to live and grow up.
Based off of our barometers, we got put into groups, and so we had nature group, sports group, safer Dunkeld group, and everyone working together, and that gave us a rough idea of what we were going to do on our murals.
So at the start we got given big whiteboards, and we had to sketch out our ideas with a group, and we had to paint it, and it took us about 4 days altogether, and yeah.
Our mural board is about all ages working together to make our community better in the future.
In one of the bottom corners, we have elderly women and a boy from primary school playing chess, and we made it a reality by going to the old folks' home every month to play chess with them.
On one of the branches, there's old women helping her grandchildren up the trees, and the oak tree is a lovely place for tourists and people to walk.
On the bottom left-hand corner, we've got a student from high school and a pupil from primary school helping each other to clear up and tidy up near their community, and they're trying to make the environment a better place to live in.
And the oak tree was in the Shakespeare Macbeth, I think it was. So yeah, thank you for listening to us.
Safe and Christian. Sorry. Our board's called A Brighter Burnham and Dunkeld, and it's about making sure Burnham and Dunkeld continues to be a safe and eco-friendly place that people want to come and live in and visit.
We want to make sure that there are always safe places for everyone to cross the road and safely.
And the centre is well lit so we can live in a brighter and happier Burnham and Dunkeld.
Our board is based on what we want for the future of our community. So there's more lights so we can see when we're walking home from clubs and stuff. And it's a safe place where everyone can feel respected and included. So there's babies, children, elderly, and tourists who they can be welcomed to our community.
I talked to a councillor about getting more lights around the Burnham and Dunkeld scene so we can get brighter ones and more. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Our board's called Nature's Future is in Our Hands.
It's about what we want for the future of our community and our nature.
The binoculars show an insight of the future of what we're like our wildlife to be, such as beavers, deer and ospreys.
And we would love to keep the wildlife we have right now in our community.
So we have to focus on the future and take care of what we have for others, engaging the community with the natural world.
Thank you for listening. This is our mural board.
Hi, so our mural board is about we love you for who you are, and it's a place where you're not judged and you don't make assumptions.
So on the left, we've got a couple with a child, and on the right, we've got another couple, and on the far left, we've got a transvestite, and all the different signs have different meanings. So there's the female sign, which says judging is out of bounds, and the male sign that says belief-free zone.
And on the tree we've got apples with little messages on them, and a couple of them are follow your dreams and be happy. And the rainbow is a symbol of peace, and if you didn't notice, from board 1 to board 5 there is leaves going through every one of them.
Our mural board is about a place to be creative and to express yourself and to try new things and to be not afraid to try new things.
We've all included all of us in the mural board, like I am in the kayaking on the right-hand side.
Our mural board is called A Place to Be Creative and Express Yourself. Our mural board is about being you and having fun. Thank you for listening.
Now we're going to tell you why our billboards are important. I think it's important that we are here today to share what we want for our future to all of you.
I think our board's important because it's come from our imagination and our personalities, and that's what makes our board so special.
I think our boards are important because it shows adults what we want for our future and for our community.
I think our billboards are important because it shows that children's voices can be heard and that adults' voices are just as important as children's.
I think our billboards are important because we got to try new things and have fun, and we also got to skip on all the things we usually do. Thank you for listening, and also thank you for letting us visit.
Thank you so much for those inspiring words. And we'll carry those away with us. And I think you have given us thoughts and ideas to shape and frame our future. Chelsea, do you want to come and say something? But thank you to each of you.
I just want to echo the thanks. I think it's been amazing for us to be part of the last couple of days and to have an opportunity to share the work that Children's Parliament and these children are doing to shape their communities, to shape the worlds that they live in. There are some big developments that are happening in their community, and we wanted to make sure that their voices were kind of inspiring those decisions that are being made so that children's voices can influence what's happening in their local community, but now in the international community as well, so we can kind of make some changes based on what the children want for the future. So thank you again for inviting us along, and well done to the children for all the hard work on the murals and also for presenting here today.
I'm going to bring Andrew and Carol up, and we're just going to have a little, Claire along, and Wendy, and we're going to have just a short time of reflecting on what we've heard from the children. So Andrew is the head of governance at Baillie Gifford. Baillie Gifford, as you know, is one of the big, how can I describe it, investment firms of the UK, with very large offices here in Scotland. So Andrew, over to you.
Now I've got some slides.
And the slides will appear, I think, as we look.
Clicker, great. Okay. Well, first of all, P7, well done. That was fantastic, and fantastic to have the school here and showcasing some of the great work that goes on. So I happen to be speaking tomorrow at the business breakfast, and by chance, talking to Liz in the prep for this, we realised that Dunkeld were coming down and doing a presentation about the murals, and it felt like a good bridge to say a few more words. So I shared with Liz some ideas of my own. Really gathered as a bit of an incomer to Dunkeld. Me and my family have been up there about 3 years. We moved from kind of, actually very near here, sort of leafy South Edinburgh. And I was struck by how much community engagement there was in the area, how much participation, and almost like you could just sort of feel a healthy community almost upon arrival. Now, it's not to say there aren't problems. There's challenges, and and the murals capture some of those. But I think there's certainly something there that tells you this is a healthy, functioning community. My pitch here is basically that if you talk about planetary health, well, the building block for that is healthy communities. They're the Lego blocks which build up to solving all sorts of issues, because I think one of the challenges when you work in either business or academia working on particular issues, it's the challenge of silos, when actually it's the overlap between disciplines and the overlap between issues, which is the really creative space where we need new thinking. And I applaud this conference and all the work that's been done to put this on today, because I think it's a really good example of interdisciplinary thinking about these issues. So I'll just talk very quickly about Dunkeld. So here it is, Highland community, Highland Perthshire, about an hour and a quarter from Edinburgh on a good run, a bit longer if you get stuck in traffic. It's about 1,300 people in the last census, so it's not a terribly big population. But it's extraordinary how much stuff goes on for such a small community. Now, I think it's particularly well endowed with natural assets, I should say. So, fantastic natural setting. You can see there on the River Tay, bridged by a Telford Bridge, first president of the Institute of Civil Engineers. So, it's got a kind of rich heritage. There's an old cathedral nearby. You've got a fantastic nature reserve. You've got the National Trust involved in the village. The kids mentioned the Burnham Oak, which is famously mentioned in Macbeth, so that there's still a living oak tree from Macbeth's period, which you can go and visit today. So if you want to sort of see a snapshot of Shakespeare's world, there's still a living relic. So there's a very rich heritage, and it's also a reasonably affluent community. So I think again that helps, but it's certainly not as affluent as South Edinburgh. And my somewhat objective observation was, why was there so much more community activity in this setting than there was in a very affluent, well-connected suburb of Edinburgh? That's what got me thinking. So what makes a healthy community? Just by chance today, there's some research out produced by Skipton Building Society, picked up in the Sun newspaper of all places. If the Sun are worried, we should all be worried. International visitors won't know the Sun, but you can pick up a copy on your way home. And you'll see this article stands out for its sort of sharp observation of genuine issues. So what the Skipton survey picks up on is people actually, in a lot of communities, seemingly hardly talk to each other, never mind get involved in organising and fixing issues. So the idea that you can have a kind of bottom-up participatory response to lots of challenges like environmental problems, social problems, it just can't function if you don't have the basics of community interaction. So what makes the basics? Well, I think you've got some great anchor institutions. So first off, top left, you've got the medical centre, so that's in the village, and it's the basics of health are well covered by a fantastic team there. You've got some fantastic institutions, like this is actually a pub, so it's not the best pairing on a slide, but it's a very special pub. It's the Tay Bank, which is a very traditional setting for live Celtic and Gaelic music, traditional Scottish music. So it's been recently revamped, and this was a community fair held last Saturday by chance, and the weather's not always like that. So I should say, by the way, this isn't to try and pump property prices in Dunkeld. People are suspicious of investors selling stuff. I'm not selling, I promise. There are challenges, but you can't help but be proud of some of the stuff going on. Other anchor institutions, the Burnham Institute, so there's a blue plaque to it, early forerunner of a community-owned enterprise, which sits across lots of different activity. So a lot of the, I haven't begun to list them, the tens and tens of clubs and voluntary groups that operate in the Dunkeld area. This is often the hub for them. They have their AGMs here, they have their meetings. The ballet school runs from there. We put on interesting shows, displays, art exhibitions. The library is housed inside the Arts Centre, so that's made it cost-effective enough for Perth and Kinross Council to keep the library open. And it's run by a fantastic team of really community heroes who, did the fundraising for the big extension you can see in the top right photograph. And that's really made it thrive for another kind of generation. It's well connected to there's communication, so the snapshot on the bottom right is the local newspaper, a free publication covering local news and events called The Bridge, after the bridge, Telford Bridge. So, there's lots going on. Now, I didn't actually know Miss Pringle was here today from P7 Dunkeld, but the other fantastic anchor institution is the school. So it's a 450-year-old state school, which is highly, highly unusual, with a very rich heritage. It also took over the Duchess Anne School, which was set up in 1853 as one of the first dedicated schools for girls' education in the country. So some fantastic early forerunners of where we are today. And my observation is this is really important because almost everybody uses the school. So even parents who could probably afford private often choose not to because it's such a great school. And that means all the energy of the community is going back in through the school and helping out with events. So volunteering at that sports day last week by chance and so on. So, there's another kind of key anchor institution. As I say, I think it's something to reflect on. Edinburgh, I love Edinburgh, by the way. I was educated here. Edinburgh has 25% of kids in private schools. And are we aware of the impact that has by taking a lot of energy, frankly, that kind of, middle-class aspirational energy out of your other institutions? It's just something to ponder on. Other anchor institutions, so there's just a quick example of this. A charity shop was set up in the village recently, but it wasn't just set up by one of the churches. There's 3 churches. They got together and co-created a charity shop which splits the profits equally across the 3 different faith institutions in the village. So again, I don't know how common this is, but to me that seems quite unusual in terms of collaboration. And there's no kind of profit share based on congregation, anything like that. It's much more equal than that. The field is really unusual. This was donated to the village by a landowner on the condition that it was an organically farmed community garden. Now, this is different from allotments, which are sort of small privatization, effectively. This is a shared community asset where people come and volunteer their time to garden together. The produce is then sold back into the village through a stall at weekends. So you can buy a giant bag of kale on a Saturday for £1 in Dunkeld. So you can begin to see the kind of different building blocks here of interfield planetary health across, sort of economic, social, and environmental health coming together. So again, a really unusual project, and could there be many more of these? There really should be. Other quick slide in this is also separately, there's a community orchard, which you can see in the bottom right picture. So everyone's involved in this in terms of, there's lots of education around it. And so we enjoy the fantastic privilege of free baskets of apples in autumn that you can just sort of wander in and pick up. So, again, really bringing food and production right into the village. Another example of, I want to kind of make the point, this isn't about misty-eyed romance of the 1950s. The community uses technology very wisely. So this is a local bakery set up by Flora Shedden, somebody came through Dunkeld Primary School. When Flora ran into problems, she's a bake-off finalist, if anyone's followed bake-off. When she ran into problems renovating this historic property, she started a crowdfunding campaign locally. So this was crowdfunded in a matter of a couple of weeks to give her the money to finish. And finally, the community organisation is quite unbelievable. The big project mentioned that sparked the murals is the dualling of the A9, the kind of main trunk road up Scotland, is being turned into a dual, more motorway-like road. It's right beside the community. And rather than just sort of sitting to wait and see what happened, the community didn't just go to the consultation. It set up its own funded group to co-create the preferred solution for the community to, really meet Transport Scotland as an equal partner in terms of what's going to happen and the kind of way forward. This is really unusual. I checked with someone recently, and all the communities along the A9, Dunkild's the only one that did something like this, that put together its own response and its own kind of funded response. So, there's a sort of participative democracy, to use a fancy term, which is kind of very apparent in lots of things. I think when you pull those pillars together, you've got something interesting. Final questions, and I'm not an academic, so it's over to some of you guys for solutions. But can we measure community health? Could you come up with a community vitality index, which measures participation and all these different pillars? If you can, would you find out actually that some rich areas are actually community deserts? There's actually very little happening. Because then I think you engage the affluent sections of society to say, this is about you too. As we privatize more and more space, what do we lose? And that can be all sorts of things. I'm not against privatization, and I went to a private school myself, so it's kind of ironic I'm sort of talking about that. But I think it's more being aware of some of the impacts of the retreat from community space. And final one from me, really the world's all about urbanization and cities. How can we begin to replicate some of this in cities, where people can just feel completely lost in 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, who knows, even 50 million population cities of the future. So anyway, over to you.
Thank you very much. Where's the clicker? Oh, okay. The slide's not up yet. That's great. We're just ready to start again. And now for this next talk, Claire from the Salzburg Global Seminars is going to look at the global issues and link the global to the local from work that started a long time back with children as well.
Great. Whoops. Thank you so much, everybody, and especially to the wonderful parliamentarians who've done such a fantastic job today. As Liz said, I'm going to try to link the local and the global. And back in 1992, before, I guess, any of you parliamentarians were born, there was a slogan that was adopted in Brazil when they were adopting the Climate Change Convention. And they said, think global, act local. Now, you guys are being brilliant at acting locally. The question is, how are we doing on the acting globally as well as thinking globally? So I'm going to share some reflections. Just a word of background. My organization, Salzburg Global Seminar, was born at the end of the Second World War, and it tried to heal the divides that were left behind by mass violence. And when we look out at the world today, we say there are still some very big divides, and we need to think together globally and locally and across sectors on how we heal the divides in the planet and deal with the risks that are coming up. So our focus is on creative, just, and sustainable change. Now, by the time our parliamentarians are advanced in their careers, they're mums and dads, they have children, by 2050, the world is going to be covered by 75% of us, 3/4, living in cities or big towns. So one of our delegates said that the nature's future is in our hands. And the question is, what will nature mean to each generation of young people who may be growing up further and further from the wild world? It's easy to forget that in Scotland because you're near to some of the world's most beautiful nature. But for many people in the world, that's a dream. But even in rich countries like the United Kingdom, people are further and further away from a personal and an active understanding of what nature means. You can see some statistics that I've put up on that slide, but maybe the one in yellow is the one that will grab people's attention. That children in the United Kingdom have less time outside right now than people in prison. When we think then about poorer countries, the World Health Organization says that people need to have 9 square meters of green space. But the reality in many parts of the world is that they have so much less. And in Beirut, in the Lebanon, in the Middle East, they have less than 1 square meter per person. If you're a kid growing up in a slum in Mexico City, it may take you an hour to get to what we might call green space. So the swings and slides and playgrounds are under motorway flyovers. That's pretty far away from Dunkeld, and it needs action now. Now, why is green space, a safe place to play, so important for children and for future generations? We're seeing more and more evidence that for mental and physical well-being, kids and older people of all generations need that access to nature. You don't need me to tell you that life at school can be quite stressful. When you look into secondary school, you may worry about what lies ahead. And the chance to play, to relax and build bonds is important, not only for individuals, but also when we look at the world that lies ahead. The teachers in this room will know that there's more and more of importance given to creativity, to social and emotional skills, for being innovative for the jobs of tomorrow that we don't even know exist. And so when we lose that contact with the outdoors, the ability to, as neuroscience tells us, to be building those skills of innovation is coming under threat. And yet nature is everywhere. Even in the most unpromising environment, nature can be found. There are some incredible initiatives that are beginning to gain pace globally. One is, some of you may have heard of it, the Outdoor Classroom Project, which is now reaching millions of children around the world, and where families, communities, school systems, and ministers of education are beginning to say, let's use the school process to drive reconnections to nature. There's the World Urban Parks Network, and I saw on one of the murals the idea that you could cross the roads safely. There's a whole global movement called 880 Cities. So whether you're 8 or whether you're 80, you should be able to walk safely to green space. And one of the other murals talked about intergenerational connection, that chess game that was being played by a granny and a child. Now, green space, open space, is where people of different generations, different parts of the community can come together on equal terms. So if you live in a city that has very little green space, where the rich have nice houses and everybody else is in the slums, how do people come together to form community? So it goes back to Andrew's excellent question about how do we take the principles of community out to the millions? So we need to remember what nature is to be able to see it. This looks like a silly picture, but my final comment before I show the last slide is that this isn't just about individuals and individuals feeling great. Those of you who are growing up generation on generation in cities are statistically going to be the leaders of countries, of businesses, of newspapers, of schools, of banks in the future. Or you're going to be voters, you're going to be people who decide how the money is spent. And if those people never had any connection with the living world or with nature when they were young, how does that sense of the importance of nature and planetary health come in later? So there's a political message behind this which is very important. And with my own organization and the World Conservation Union, we're trying to look in a systemic way at these challenges through the Parks of the Planet Forum. Love to chat to anybody who'd like to discuss this more. But essentially, it's looking out at the 7 to 9 billion and saying, how do we think smart now about new connections between nature, health, and the urban generations of the future? And how do we look through the lens of a child and the wellness of that child as a principle for forward global development? So thank you very much. And again, congratulations to our parliamentarians. I think you're awesome.